The first time I heard her breathing through the shower drain, I told myself it was the marina's plumbing, air burping through old pipes, water slapping somewhere it shouldn't. Then the breath paused like whoever was down there had heard me listening, and something wet clicked against the metal grate in slow, patient taps. I live on a boat. Not a nice one either. Me and Carla rent a converted tug that hasn't moved under its own power since before I was born. It sits in a finger slip at Gull Point Marina like a tired dog that learned not to expect walks. The owner calls it a floating loft. That's realtor poison for it leaks, it smells like diesel, and the walls sweat. But it's cheap. Cheap enough that two girls in their 20s can split it and still afford groceries and the kind of beer you can drink without tasting pennies. Carla loved it the second she stepped on deck. She crouched and ran her fingers along the rust blooms like she was petting a horse. She liked anything that felt old and alive. She liked tide marks and barnacles and those little sea slaters that skitter under wet rope. She talked to the gulls. She fed the stray marina cat sardines and called him captain like she'd promoted him. I liked Carla because she made the boat feel like a choice instead of compromise. She was, outdoorsy, same as in every cliche, except her outdoors was water. Not hiking, not mountain air. Salt, cold, depth. She was the kind of diver who didn't just do little reef tours and post bikini pics. She did the hard stuff. Dry suit, twin tanks, lights taped and zip-tied, cave lines. She had a whole ritual with her gear. Rinse, inspect, lay it out like a surgeon. She'd be humming while she worked, like the ocean didn't scare her at all. It scared me. Even sitting on our deck at night, looking down into black water with floating dock lights making those trembling orange ladders, I'd get this stupid dizzy feeling. Like the water was a mouth and we were parked on the lip. Carla would lean over, spit, watch it disappear, and grin like the darkness was her friend. So when she told me she was going on a 3-week dive expedition, I didn't pretend to be chill. 3 weeks, I said, holding a mug of coffee that tasted like the boat's pipes. Off-grid, no signal. With who? With me, she said, like that answered everything. Carla had this way of smiling like she was about to prank you, even when she was dead serious. She was packing pelican cases in the galley, sliding them under the table, tying bungees. Tanks clunked. The whole tug's hull rang with it. You can't just go alone, I said. That's literally the first rule. Rule for who? She shot back. For people who panic. For people who want to come back. She rolled her eyes, but I saw the flash of irritation. We'd had this fight before, in different shapes. She'd come home from a dive with bruises on her hips from squeezing through a restriction, like the cave had tried to keep a piece of her. She'd come back with little cuts that she'd shrug off, like blood was just part of the ocean tax. Look, she said, softening because she did that too, heated, then gentle like she couldn't help it. I'm not going into some death hole. It's an old site. People go there. I'm not doing it stupid. Where is there? I asked. She hesitated just long enough to piss me off. Out past Breakwater Point, she said. The old listening post. That made my stomach drop. The old listening post wasn't a tourist spot. It was one of those half-public, half-whispered places locals talk about like a campfire story. A decommissioned underwater module. Some Cold War leftover that sat out on the shelf in deep water with cables running toward shore like veins. There were rumors about it, because there are always rumors about anything the Navy touches. Some guys swore they'd heard pings out there at night that didn't match any buoy or ship. Some divers said the water around it felt wrong, like it was thicker. I'd never been out there. I didn't want to. Carla had. There's something down there that isn't on the charts, she said, eyes bright. Something big. You can hear it sometimes, even in the harbor, if you know what you're listening for. That's called imagination, I said. She leaned in, close enough that I could smell sunscreen and neoprene, and she whispered, or it's called listening. I didn't like that. Not because it was spooky, because she said it like she meant it. She promised me she'd be careful. She promised she'd check in before she lost signal. She promised she'd be back in exactly 3 weeks, tanned and smug, and smelling like kelp. The morning she left, the marina was fogged and so thick the masts looked like teeth. She hugged me on the dock. Her dry suit was half zipped and hanging at the waist, straps flopping. Her hair was in that messy braid that always looked like it was coming undone. "Don't burn the boat down," she said. "Don't drown," I said. She laughed like I was dramatic, then kissed my forehead like I was a kid, and stepped onto a small workboat, one of those aluminum skiffs with a shitty outboard that she'd rented for the first leg. Pelican cases thumped. Tanks rolled. She pushed off, engine coughing, and disappeared in a fog like she'd always belonged out there more than she belonged with me. The tug felt too quiet after. I didn't realize how much noise Carla made until she wasn't there. Not just talking. The clink of gear, the stomp of fins, the way she'd hum while she cooked, the way she'd open and shut cabinets like she was mad at them. Even her showers were loud. She'd sing, she'd curse the water pressure, she'd bang on pipes and make the whole boat shiver. Without her, the tug just creaked. Water slapped the hull. The bilge pump kicked on at random intervals like a heartbeat I couldn't control. I tried to fill the emptiness with stupid things. TV, podcasts, scrolling until my eyes burned. I walked the docks at night, looking at the black water between slips and thinking about what it would feel like to fall in with all your clothes on, boots filling, pockets dragging you down. After a week of radio silence, I started to convince myself I'd overreacted. Carla was Carla. She'd always come back. She'd always have some story about a seal stealing her snack or a stingray gliding past like a ghost. Then my phone pinged. The sound was so sharp and the tug's quiet that it made my heart jump, and I actually laughed at myself. Nervous, embarrassed, before I even looked. Carla. A photo filled my screen. It was underwater, not the pretty turquoise vacation kind. Dark green-blue. You could tell she was deep because the light was wrong. Narrow, flashlight bright in the center and fading to nothing at the edges. In the beam, a curtain of water falling straight down through open air. An underwater waterfall. It took my brain a second to accept what I was seeing, because waterfalls aren't supposed to exist underwater. But in certain places, sinkholes, blue holes, where fresh water meets salt. There's a phenomenon where different densities create a visible fall, like a river inside the sea. Carla had explained it to me once, excited, waving her hands like she was pulling water out of air. In the photo, that fall looked like a rip in reality. It plunged from a ceiling of rock in a blackness below, dragging silt and tiny, glittering particles with it like snow. At the bottom edge of the frame, I could see the tip of Carla's gloved hand, pointing toward it. Caption, "Thinking of you, smiley face." I stared at it until my eyes watered. She never turned her phone on during trips. She'd said it was poison. She'd joked that the ocean didn't have Wi-Fi for a reason. I typed back, "I'm surprised you turned on your phone, but that is insane. You okay?" A minute later, she hearted it. No reply. That should have felt reassuring. It did, for maybe an hour. Then the questions started crawling in. How did she have service? Why no words? Why did that photo make me feel like I looked through a crack in something I wasn't supposed to? I told myself she was busy. Gloves. Cold. Limited battery. I told myself all the sensible things. A few days later, another ping. Another photo. This one was a wreck. A small vessel, maybe a fishing boat, lying on its side in sand. The hull was split open like a mouth. Nets drifted from it like torn hair. There were anemones clinging to the metal, pale and soft, and in the background a school of fish hung in place, all facing the same direction like they were waiting. It was beautiful in that rotting way underwater things get, like the ocean doesn't just kill, it decorates. This time, the text was only a single heart. I sent back, "Where the hell are you? That doesn't look like breakwater." Seen. No response. I didn't think imposter then. I didn't think monster. I thought what anyone thinks. She's being annoying. She's fucking with me. She's low on battery and only sending quick stuff. She'll explain when she's back. Another week crawled by. The tug's walls sweated. The air inside tasted like damp rope and old coffee. At night, I'd hear the marina's distant foghorn and feel in my teeth. Sometimes, half asleep, I'd think I heard something else layered under it. An electronic ping, faint, regular like sonar. I blamed buoys. I blamed my imagination. I was in the galley making ramen because I eat like trash when Carla isn't around to shame me with her seaweed salads. When I heard the dock gate clank, footsteps on the planks. Heavy, uneven. Then our door. The tug's door is a metal thing that seals like a submarine hatch. You have to spin the handle hard. When it opened, it always made this groan like the boat was protesting. It groaned. I froze with the ramen packet in my hand. The door swung inward and Carla stepped in. Except she didn't step. She kind of lurched like she was still feeling waves under her feet, even though the tug was steady. She had a duffel slung over one shoulder and a pelican case in her hand, and both of them were dripping. Not just damp, dripping. She was soaked like she'd climbed out of the ocean fully dressed. Her hair hung in wet ropes. Her cheeks were pale and raw like they'd been windburned, salt crusted at her temples. Her lips looked wrong, not blue, more like they'd been chewed. And her eyes were open too wide, like she was trying not to blink. Holy shit, I said, because what else do you say? Gunla, what happened? She looked at me for a second too long, like she had to remember what I looked like. Then she smiled. I'm good, Sasha, she said. My name hit me like a slap. She's never called me Sasha. Not once. Not since the day we met, and I told her, laughing, nobody calls me that. She grinned and said, cool, Sash it is. And it had been Sash ever since. Sasha, she repeated like tasting it. Just really need to shower. She shoved the duffel to the floor. It landed with a wet thud. Water spread across the galley's rubber mat in a dark bloom. You're early, I said, because my brain was trying to find something normal to grab onto. You were supposed to be gone 2 more. I'm here, she cut in, voice sharp. Okay, I'm here. Are you hurt? I stepped toward her, reaching automatically for her arm, and she flinched. Actually flinched like my touch would burn. I said I'm fine. The words came out too fast, too hard. I pulled back. She walked past me toward her cabin, dripping a trail across the deck. The tug's interior is narrow. Metal walls, low ceiling, everything too close. As she passed, I got a full hit of her smell. Not just salt, brine, and something metallic. Like blood diluted in seawater. Like coins left too long in a mouth. She disappeared into her cabin and shut the door. I stood there with my ramen packet, breathing shallow, listening. I heard her moving. Heavy steps. The clunk of gear. Then the bathroom door, then the shower. Our shower is tiny. It's basically a closet with a drain and a curtain that sticks to your legs. When Carla showered, she always complained about it. She'd sing louder to make up for the claustrophobia. This time, no singing. Just water. And something else under it. A low, wet sound like she was gargling. I pressed my palm to the galley counter to ground myself. It was cold and damp. Everything on the tug always felt damp. I told myself she'd been through something scary. A bad dive. A storm. Maybe she'd gotten tangled. Maybe she'd seen something gross. Maybe she was just exhausted and pissed and didn't want to talk. That's what I told myself until she came out hours later. Fresh clothes. Hair towel dried, but still slick. Skin scrubbed raw in places, like she tried to scrape something off. Scratches ran across her forearms in parallel lines. Not random brush scratches. Neat, like something had raked her. There were small scabs along her jawline too, like she'd been dragged. Her eyes looked worse clean. More obvious. Haunted is the word people use, but haunted makes it sound like poetry. This was more like empty, like she was looking through me, not at me. Carla, I said carefully, talk to me. Did something happen out there? She stared at me until my throat tightened. Then she smiled again, too big, and said, it's been a shitty week, Sasha. There was again. Sasha, stop calling me that. I snapped before I could stop myself. You don't call me that. She blinked, just once. Her expression flickered, like a screen glitching. Sorry, she said. and the word didn't sound like her. It sounded practiced. I am tired. Tired doesn't make you forget my name, I said. Her jaw tightened. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Making it a thing. She stepped closer, and for the first time I noticed her hands. Her fingertips were pruned, white, like she'd been in water for days. There was a faint dark line under one nail, like something stuck. You walked in here, soaking wet, and acting like you got hit by a truck, I said. And you won't tell me why. She leaned in, voice low, and said, drop it. Something in me went cold. Not fear yet, more like offense. Like my own friend had just threatened me in my own home. Fine, I said, even though I didn't mean it. Fine. Shower. Sleep. Whatever. She turned away and went to the galley table. She sat, stiff-backed, and pulled a book from her bag. I'd never seen it before. Thick, dark cover. No title that I could recognize. The pages were rippled like they'd been wet and dried wrong. She opened it and started reading. The text inside wasn't English. It wasn't any language I knew. It wasn't even letters, not really. More like symbols, curves and dots and little forked marks arranged in lines like script, but wrong, like they belonged underwater. Like how writing might look if it had been carved into coral. What is that? I asked. A book, she said without looking up. Nosleep. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were flat. Don't touch my stuff. Okay, I said because suddenly I was tired too. Tired in my bones. I went to bed early, telling myself tomorrow would be normal again. It wasn't. Carla didn't sleep. My cabin shares a wall with the galley. On the tug, walls are thin metal with insulation stuffed behind, so you hear everything. Every cabinet, every footstep, every sigh. That night, I lay in the dark listening to her move around. Soft steps, barefoot. Drawer open, drawer shut. The fridge. The cabinet where we keep canned food. Then a sound that made my mouth fill with saliva in the worst way. Chewing. Slow. Vet. I told myself she was eating. Comfort food. Whatever. Then I heard the sink tap run. Not normal flow, just a thin trickle. Then stop. Then trickle again. Like she was filling something. Then, from the bathroom, the tub faucet. Full on. We don't take baths. The tub is tiny and shallow and honestly disgusting. Carla hated it. She called it the sad soup bowl. The water ran and ran. I got up, opened my cabin door crack, and looked down the narrow corridor. Light spilled from the bathroom. Steam. The air smelled like hot metal and salt. I could hear Carla in there. Not splashing, just shifting, like something heavy settling. I almost called out. I almost knocked, but my body wouldn't. I shut my door and sat on my bed, hugging my knees, listening until the water finally stopped. At some point, I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, morning light was leaking through my porthole and my phone was buzzing with a marina group chat notification about someone's dog getting loose. I dragged myself into the galley with a headache. Carla's cabin door was shut. The tug smelled different, sharper, like low tide in a closed room. I turned on the TV low, just for noise. Sat on the couch. Tried to pretend my skin wasn't crawling. 5 minutes in, Carla's door slammed open. She stepped out, hair damp again like she just rinsed it. She looked at the TV like it had personally insulted her. "Can you turn that shit down?" she yelled. It echoed in the metal hull. A gull outside, startled and screeched. I fumbled for the remote. Sorry. It's not even loud. She slammed her door again, so hard the wall vibrated. Something in the cabinet rattled. I sat there, remote in my hand, heart beating like I'd been caught doing something wrong. Anger rose up, hot, helpless. Who the fuck was she to come back into our home and treat me like trash? I stood, walked her door, and knocked hard. "Carla," I said. "Open the door. We need to talk." Silence. I knocked again. "Open it." Still nothing. My hand hovered over the handle. The handle was cold, damp, like it had condensation on it. I don't know why I didn't open it. Maybe because I was scared of what I'd see. Maybe because part of me already knew talking wouldn't fix whatever this was. I stepped back. My phone buzzed. I looked down, expecting another dumb marina message. It was Carla. A text. A photo loaded in. It was of a cave entrance underwater, rock coated in pale algae, vines of kelp waving like hair. In the mouth of the cave, darkness thick swallowing, and perched in the frame like a little joke, a tiny fish staring straight at the camera, its eye reflecting the flash. The message read, "My trip has been going really well. Tomorrow I'm going to be hiking up the mountain." My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. Hiking up the mountain. I looked at the timestamp. Sent just now. I turned slowly toward Carla's cabin door. My first thought, stupidly, was, she's messing with me. She's inside and texting me to freak me out because she's mad. But that didn't make sense. Carla's pranks were dumb and obvious. This didn't feel like a prank. This felt like someone pushing a needle under a nail. I texted back with shaking thumbs. "What the fuck is this? You're literally here." The little delivered check appeared. Then seen. No reply. I stood there in the corridor, phone in my hand, staring at her door like it might open on its own. It didn't. I backed away and went back to the galley, because what else do you do? The tug suddenly felt smaller. The air felt thicker. The water outside sounded louder, slapping the hull like it wanted in. I sat at the table and tried to breathe like a normal person. Carla's door opened a crack. She stepped out, calm now, like she hadn't screamed a minute ago. She didn't look at me. She walked to the galley table and sat across from me with her weird book. She opened it and started reading. I stared at her hands. Pruned fingertips. The faint dark line under the nail still there. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Reading." I swallowed. "Why are you texting me?" Her eyes lifted to mine, and for a second, I swear I saw something move behind them, like a shadow passing under ice. "I'm not," she said. My throat went tight. "I just got a text from you. Right now." She tilted her head slightly, like she was listening to a distant sound. Then she smiled, small and secret. "Maybe you got a text," she said. "Doesn't mean it's from me." My skin prickled. "What does that mean?" I asked. She went back to her book. Conversation over. I stood up so fast the chair scraped. "No, don't do that. Don't talk in riddles like you're some creepy." She slammed her palm on the table. The sound was sharp enough to make me flinch. "Stop," she said, voice low. My anger flashed into something else, fear with teeth. "Who are you?" I heard myself say, and the second the words left my mouth, I hated them, because saying it made it real. Carla's eyes flicked up, and her face did that glitch thing again, tiny shift like a mask settling. "I'm Carla," she said, and her voice was flat, like she'd memorized it. "Your friend." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I grabbed my phone and walked into my cabin and shut the door. I sat on my bed and scrolled mindlessly like that could erase what had just happened. TikTok, Facebook, local news, memes, anything to drown my own thoughts. My fingers were shaking too much, so I kept accidentally refreshing. Then a post loaded that made my whole body go cold. It was a local police department update, shared by half the town, because that's what people do when something bad happens. They share it, so they can touch it without actually touching it. The cover photo was Carla. Not a random Carla. My Carla. It was a picture I'd taken of her on our deck last summer, hair sun-bleached, laughing with a beer in her hand, ocean behind her like a backdrop she owned. The headline read, "Body of mutilated diver identified." I stopped breathing. My eyes went blurry. My thumb hovered over the screen like it didn't belong to me. I clicked. The post was real. Official page. Comments pouring in, people writing prayers, and oh my God, and crying emojis like that did anything. I forced myself to read. The body recovered on July 3rd has been identified as Carla Ray Rhodes, 23, of Elmwood. Preliminary findings indicate traumatic injuries consistent with a marine animal incident. The incident is believed to have occurred off Breakwater Point. Family has been notified. Further details will be released as they become available. I dropped my phone like it had burned me. July 3rd, 3 days after she left. She left on June 30th. I knew that because I'd circled it on our little tug calendar and drawn a stupid doodle of a fish next to it. 3 days later, she was dead. But she'd texted me the underwater waterfall a week into her trip. I grabbed my phone again so hard my knuckles popped and opened her messages. There it was. The waterfall photo. Timestamp, July 7th. A week after she'd supposedly died. The wreck photo, July 11th. The cave photo, this morning. My hands started sweating and the screen got slick under my fingers. I felt like I was sinking, like the tug's hull had quietly filled while I wasn't looking and the water was already at my ankles. I texted Carla's mom before I could talk myself out of it, because denial is a reflex and I needed someone to stab through it. Hey, is Carla with you? I just saw something online and I'm freaking out. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, oh honey, no, didn't they call you? I'm so sorry. We thought you knew. We're still waiting on the medical examiner, but it's her. It's her gear. Her ID. I'm so sorry. My vision tunneled. I pressed my forehead to the wall. The tug's wall was cold and damp. I could feel vibrations through it. The marina, the water, the world continuing like nothing had changed. My friend was dead. So who had walked through our door last night? Who was sitting in our galley right now reading that impossible book? And who had been texting me pictures from underwater like postcards? I heard a sound outside my cabin door. Bare feet on the metal floor. Slow steps. A pause. Then a soft knock. Not with knuckles. With something wet. Talp, talp, talp. Sasha. Carla's voice came through the door. Gentle now, like we were back to normal. You okay? My throat made a strangled sound. I didn't answer. The knob turned slightly, like she was testing it. I'd locked it without realizing. Thank God. Sash, she said, and hearing the old nickname almost broke me. Almost. It was like someone wearing your dead friend's face remembered one detail too late. Go away, I managed. Silence. Then softer, I'm hungry. I didn't answer. I heard her footsteps retreat. I sat frozen for a long time, phone in my hand, staring at the police post like it might change if I blinked. Then I did the stupidest thing possible. I opened the marina's live webcam feed. The marina office has cameras for security, and residents can log in to check weather and dock conditions. Carla used it to see if fog was rolling in before dives. I typed in the password with shaking fingers and pulled up the view of her dock. The camera showed the finger pier. Boats rocking. Fog thin today, sunlight glittering off ripples. And there, our tug. From above, it looked small, pathetic. I watched for movement. Nothing. Then the tug's door opened. Carla stepped out onto the deck. She stood in the sun like she'd never been dead. She leaned on the railing and looked down into the water between the slip and the dock. The camera didn't have audio, but I could see her mouth move like she was talking to something below. Then she smiled, and she waved, not at the camera, at the water. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Another text from Carla. A photo. This one made my blood go cold in a different way, because it wasn't underwater. It was inside our tug. It was taken from the corridor outside my cabin. My cabin door was in the frame. My door. The message under it read, "Don't lock me out." I stared at it until my eyes burned. Then I heard the shower drain. Not the shower running, just a drain. A slow, wet gurgle like something breathing through a pipe. And under that, faint, impossibly faint, a distant electronic sound. Ping, 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 like sonar, traveling through metal and water and bone. I didn't know what to do. Call the cops? And say what? My dead roommate is on my boat reading a sea demon Bible? Break the window and jump into the marina? Into that black water full of ropes and propellers and whatever she'd been waving at? My hand was shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone again. I swiped up to call someone, anyone, and my screen filled with a new message before I could. Another photo from Carla. A selfie. Carla's face, bright and clean, smiling like a beach day. No scratches. No scrab skin. Her hair dry and sunlit. Behind her, water. A calm surface that looked like a lake or a sheltered bay. No marina. No tug. Just endless water and sky. She looked alive in the way the Carla in my galley didn't. The message read, "Do you miss me?" My thumb hovered over the screen like the phone was a live thing that might bite. Do you miss me? That clean selfie wasn't taken last night. That wasn't taken at all. Not in any way my brain could accept. The light on her face was warm, like late afternoon sun-off water. Her eyes looked like the Carla I knew. Mischief, smugness, that little spark like she was always one step ahead of everyone else. But the Carla in my galley had eyes like low tide. Empty, patient. I didn't answer the text. I couldn't. If I typed anything, it meant I was talking to it. Like a door. Like permission. My cabin felt smaller by the second. Condensation beaded on the porthole and ran down like sweat. The tug creaked, slow and heavy, and every creak sounded like a footstep. I opened the Marina webcam again because I needed something that felt like proof. The tug's deck was empty now. The door was shut. The water between slips looked calm, just a black sheet wrinkling in the breeze. I listened hard, like that could help, and that stupid ping crept up through the hull again. Ping. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even a sound, so much as a pressure, like someone tapping a spoon against your teeth from the inside. My brain finally did what it should have done immediately. I tried to call for help. 911 felt too big, too insane. What do you say? Hi. My dead roommate is impersonating herself on my houseboat and texting me underwater tourist pics. They'd send someone to do a wellness check, and I'd end up in a psych hole while the thing kept living in my kitchen. So I called someone smaller first. I called Jonah. Jonah wasn't a friend. Jonah was a Coast Guard dispatcher I'd met when Carla dragged me to some safety seminar, and I made a sarcastic comment about not dying that got a laugh. He was one of those guys who could talk like a normal human while still having that clipped work voice under it. He picked up on the second ring. Gull Point Station, he said, automatic. Jonah, it's Sash, I said. My voice cracked on my own nickname, like my throat didn't trust it anymore. I need you to not laugh, okay? Silence for half a beat. Then softer, Sash. You all right? No, I'm not. Carla. I swallowed and tasted metal. Carla's in my boat. She came back last night, but there's a police post saying she's dead. He didn't laugh. They made it worse. What's the post? He asked. Voice turning professional without turning cold. I can send it, I said. My fingers were shaking too hard to type fast. But she's literally here, Jonah. She's downstairs. And she's not right. Okay, he said. Okay, take a breath. Are you in immediate danger? That question snapped something in my head. Immédiat danger. Like I could quantify it. I don't know, I said honestly. She's acting weird. She's texting me from her phone while she's here. She called me Sasha. She's reading this book. It's not English. It's like symbols. And I stopped because saying she's breathing through the drain sounded like I'd lost it. Jonah didn't push. He just said, where are you right now? In my cabin. Locked. Good, he said. Stay locked. Do you have a secondary exit? Window? Hatch? Porthole? I said. It's small. Don't use it unless you have to, he said. Listen to me. I'm going to pull up the report and verify. I'm also going to dispatch a welfare check through the Marina security. Not police, okay? Just someone to get eyes on the situation without escalating. Okay, I whispered. And Sash, he hesitated, then lowered his voice. Has Carla ever had episodes like dissociation, drugs, trauma? No, I snapped, anger flaring through the fear. She's not on drugs. She's not crazy. She's dead. The line went quiet. I heard Jonah inhale. Just stay put, he said. I'm on it. I ended the call and sat there listening to my own pulse. That's when the tug rocked. Not normal bobbing. Not a wave slap. A single heavy shift, like something large had leaned against the hull. My eyes went to the cabin door. Then the shower drain gurgled again, slow and wet. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The drain was in the corner of my cabin floor because the tug's layout was stupid. Everything shared plumbing like one big metal stomach. The gurgle stopped. Then the tapping started. Talp, talp, talp. Not from the door. From under my bed. From the hull itself. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps again. Like a code. Like a language. I pulled my feet up onto the bed like a kid, even though it was humiliating. The mattress smelled faintly of mildew because nothing on that boat ever truly dried. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. Underwater again. Darker. A beam of light cutting through silt. The edge of something man-made in the frame. Metal ribs, maybe a hatch. And in the center of the beam, something that made my stomach clench. A handprint. Pressed onto the outside of a glass dome. Fingers splayed like someone on the other side had tried to push through. The caption read, "I found the window." My throat made a sound like a choke. The tapping under the bed answered, faint and delighted. Talp, talp, talp. Then the cabin door handle turned, slow, not jiggled. Turned like someone had all the time in the world. The lock held. The handle turned back, then again, testing. Garla. I croaked because I'm an idiot and my mouth moves before my brain. On the other side of the door, her voice came through, soft and sweet, like she was the Carla from that selfie. "Sash," she said. "Open up." "No," I said, and I hated how small it sounded. A pause. Then she laughed, just one breathy sound, and it was wrong. It wasn't her laugh. It was a mimic of her laugh, like a recording played through water. "You're making a mess in there," she said. "What?" My voice trembled. "What mess?" Silence again. Then, almost whispering salt. My mouth went dry. I looked down at my hands. They were damp, not sweat. Damp like I dipped them in the sea. I wiped them on my shirt, and the fabric came away wet, leaving dark patches. I hadn't touched any water. I hadn't left my cabin. The only water in here was the drain, the pipes, the condensation. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Marina Security. I almost sobbed with relief. I answered instantly, whispering like someone could hear me through the walls. "Hello." A man's voice, bored and annoyed. "This is Dave with Gull Point Security. We got a call about a possible disturbance at Slip 14. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'm in the tug. My roommate, something is wrong. Please come." "Ma'am," Dave sighed like I was wasting his time. "Is anyone injured? Are you being threatened?" I pressed my forehead to the wall. "I don't know. Just please. She's not supposed to be here." He grunted. "We'll walk by." "Don't walk by," I hissed. "Come on the boat." "Ma'am, we don't board private." The cabin door handle on my side moved again, slow, deliberate. I whispered, "She's trying to get in." Dave's tone shifted a notch. Okay. Stay on the line. I'm heading over now." I heard him moving, keys jangling, the sound of boots on planks through his phone speaker. Good. Real sounds. Then, from the galley, I heard Carla's chair scrape. Footsteps. Slow bear. I held my breath. Dave's boots got closer. "I'm at the dock gate," he said into the phone. "I see the tug." "I don't see." A shout muffled. "What the?" Then a splash. Not a little splash. A body-sized one. Dave swore loudly. "Jesus." "Dave." I whispered. "Dave, what happened?" Heavy breathing into the phone. Someone just went in the water." My blood went cold. "Carla." "I don't know," he panted. "I didn't see. I saw movement then." The tug rocked again, harder this time, like something slammed into the hull from outside. My bed frame rattled. A cup on my shelf tipped and clinked. Dave cursed again. "Mom, I'm coming on board." "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, please." I heard him climbing, the metallic thud of his boots on the tug's deck. Then the outer door handle spun and the door groaned open. Dave's voice echoed faintly in the tug's corridor. "Hello, Marina Security. Anyone here?" My heart hammered so hard it hurt. I wanted to scream I'm in here, but I didn't. Not yet. I listened. Dave took a few steps inside. His radio crackled. "Dispatch, I'm on board." I had a possible person overboard. A sound cut him off. A wet slap, like a fish hitting a dock. Then a soft, delighted inhale. Dave's voice went sharp. "Hey, hands where I can." A second wet slap, closer. Then Dave screamed. Not a macho shout. A real scream, high and raw, like pain and terror squeezed out of him at once. My whole body locked up. I clamped a hand over my mouth, so hard my teeth bit my palm. Dave's scream cut off like someone had shoved it underwater. Silence. Then, from right outside my cabin door, Dave's voice spoke again. Same voice, same tone, but wrong. "Ma'am," it said, "you can come out now." I squeezed my eyes shut. My stomach rolled, because Dave hadn't walked down the corridor. I would have heard the boots. That voice was right outside my door without any of the sounds that should have gotten it there. And the words were too calm, too neat. My phone was still on the line because I hadn't hung up. All I heard on it was static, not normal phone static. Water in a mic static, like someone had dunked the call. Then, faint under it, that sonar ping again. Ping. A text came in. From Carla. A photo of Dave's face. His eyes wide. His mouth open mid-scream. The image was blurry like it had been taken with wet hands. The caption, "He doesn't swim well." I made a sound I couldn't stop, like a sob, trying to become a laugh and failing. Outside my door, Dave's voice, not Dave, chuckled. "You're making it hard," it said, and now it was Carla's voice again, sliding between like it didn't care which one it used. "Sash, open up." I pressed my back to the wall and looked around my cabin like there was a magic escape I'd missed. The porthole, small, round, bolted. I scrambled off the bed and grabbed the little wrench we keep for tightening fittings. My hands were slick, salt water. I could smell it on myself now, like I'd been crying brine. The porthole bolts squealed as I turned them. 1, 2, 3, my fingers slipped, wrench clattering. The sound was too loud. It echoed. I froze, listening. Outside the door, something shifted. A wet drag sound, like a body pulled across metal. My throat tightened. I twisted harder, bolts loosening one by one. The porthole frame was cold. Condensation ran down my wrist like sweat. When the last bolt came loose, I pushed. The porthole didn't swing open like in movies. It stuck, swollen with age and salt. I shoved with both hands until my shoulders shook. It popped free with a sound like a seal breaking. Cold air hit my face. The marina outside was bright, cruelly normal. Boats, sunlight, people in the distance walking dogs. A gull perched on a piling, watching me with dead little eyes. I could fit through, barely. I stuck my head out first. The water below was right there, black-green, rippling. The dock was a couple feet away, but from this angle it looked far. I heard the cabin door handle move again. The lock clicked as if someone had found the right pressure. My brain screamed now. I shoved my shoulders through the porthole, wriggling like a trapped animal. The metal frame scraped my ribs. My shirt snagged. I yanked and felt fabric tear. Behind me, the cabin door opened. I didn't look. I couldn't. I kicked my legs, got my hips through, and then I was half hanging out of the tug, breathing air that smelled like tar and seaweed, staring down at water that wanted to swallow me. Something grabbed my ankle. Not a hand. Cold, slick like a suction cup. It yanked hard. My head snapped back and my chin hit the porthole rim. Stars exploded behind my eyes. I screamed and kicked. My heel connected with something soft that wasn't supposed to be soft. It made a wet sound and released me for half a second. I used that half second to launch myself fully out, tumbling onto the dock boards. I landed on my side. Pain shot through my shoulder. Splinters bit my palm. I rolled onto my back, gasping, and looked up at the tug. Carla's face appeared in the porthole behind me, except it wasn't her face. It was like her face had been pressed against the glass from the inside too long. Flattened, features slightly wrong, eyes too far apart by a fraction, smile too wide, teeth showing too much gum. She blinked slowly like a shark. Then she smiled and mouthed something I couldn't hear. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. I ran. I ran down the dock barefoot because I'd forgotten shoes. My feet slapped on sun-warm boards, then hit cooler planks in shade. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. People turned. A guy in a baseball cap said, "Hey, you okay?" I blew past him. "Call 911. I yelled. He stared, confused, like people do when real panic interrupts their day. I hit the dock gate and shoved it open so hard it banged the post. I sprinted up to the marina office, lungs burning, throat tasting like rust. Behind me, the water in the slips slapped louder, like it was laughing. I burst into the office. 2 employees behind the counter jerked upright. One of them, older woman with reading glasses, said, "Ma'am." "Call the police," I gasped. "Call the Coast Guard." Someone fell in, security Dave. They exchanged a look. The older woman picked up the phone slow. Okay. Sit down." "No, you snubbutt. Don't tell me to sit down. Go to slip 14. Right now. You have cameras. Look at the cameras." One of them, a kid with a lanyard, swiveled to the monitor wall. The screen showed different docks, different angles. He tapped keys. Slip 14. Slip 14. My heart hammered. The screen changed. There was our tug, tiny on the monitor. The dock. The water. No Dave. No me. And Carla was on the dock, standing exactly where I'd fallen. Dry. Calm. She raised her hand and waved at the camera. The kid frowned. "That your roommate?" "That's not her," I whispered. The older woman's mouth tightened. She lifted the office phone to her ear. "I'm calling." On the monitor, Carla turned toward the water. She crouched and touched the surface with her fingertips like she was petting a dog. The water dimpled around her fingers. Then something rose, not breaking the surface like a fish. The surface bulged upward, thickening like a membrane being pushed from below. A shape pressed against it. A hand, then another. Fingers long. Too many joints. The water should have splashed. It didn't. It held them like clear jelly. Carla leaned forward, smiling, and whispered to the water. Her lips moved, and the thing under the surface answered by tapping the underside of the dock boards. Talp, talp, talp. The sound carried in the office. Faint through the glass and distance, but I felt it in my bones. The kid didn't. He just stared at the screen, eyes narrowed. "What the fuck is that?" Then Carla looked up at the camera. Her smile widened, and she raised one finger to her lips in a shushing gesture. The older woman's phone line crackled. She jerked it away from her ear. "What is?" The monitors flickered. For a split second, every camera feed showed the same thing. Dark water, a flashlight beam, a glass dome, a handprint on it from the inside. Then the feed snapped back to normal like nothing happened. The kid swore. "Did you see that?" I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was full of water. My own phone buzzed again, then again, then again, like a heartbeat. I pulled it out with shaking hands. A message from Jonah. Verified. Body recovered July 3rd. It's her. Do not go back on the boat. Police en route. Stay in office. My relief lasted exactly 1 second, because another message stacked under it. From Carla. A photo. It was of my face, taken from the monitor feed. Grainy from above, as I stood in the office in front of the counter, hair wild, eyes wide. The caption, "I can see you." My knees went weak. The older woman finally connected to someone because she was speaking fast now, words tumbling. Possible trespasser, possible person overboard. I don't know. Yes, Gull Point Marina, slip 14. Outside the office windows, I saw movement down the walkway. Carla, walking up from the docks like she belonged there, like she had a lease and an account number and a favorite coffee order. Dry, not a single wet footprint on the concrete. She moved wrong, not dramatic, not zombie. Just slightly off, like her joints didn't have the same limits. Like she'd learned legs by watching. Her head turned as she walked, tracking the office windows. Tracking me. Lock the door, I croaked. The kid blinked at me, then at her, and his face drained. He sprinted to the glass door and slammed it shut, flipping the lock. Carla reached the door and stopped, inches from the glass. Up close, she looked more like Carla than ever. Her hair was neat. Her skin wasn't scrubbed raw. The scratches on her arms were gone. Her eyes were bright. She looked like that selfie. That made it worse. She pressed her palm to the glass. Her fingernails were wet. She smiled and mouthed, exaggerated so I could read it. Sash. The older woman whispered, "Do you know her?" "That's not her," I said. I sounded crazy. I knew I sounded crazy, but I didn't care. "That's wearing her." Carla's lips moved again, this time faster, like she was speaking normally, but I couldn't hear her through the glass. Then her eyes slid to the older woman holding the phone. Carla's smile dropped. Her face went blank, like she'd gotten bored of pretending. She opened her mouth. Just opened it. Wider than a human mouth should open. Jaw unhinging, skin stretching at the corners like wet paper. Inside, her mouth wasn't mouth-colored. It was dark like deep water. And in that darkness, something pulsed, faintly bioluminescent, like a jellyfish's glow. The older woman choked on a sound and dropped the phone. The kid backed away so hard he hit the counter. I couldn't move. My brain finally hit a wall of nope, so hard it just froze. Carla's mouth stayed open, and from it that sonar ping rolled out, not through air like sound, but through the room like pressure. Ping. The windows rattled. The older woman grabbed her ears and screamed. Blood trickled from one nostril. The kid gagged. I felt in my teeth again, like someone tapping a spoon against bone. Carla closed her mouth. Her face snapped back to normal like nothing happened. She tapped the glass 3 times with her wet nails. "Top, top, top." Then she turned and walked away. Just left, like she'd made her point. For a few seconds, the office was silent except for our breathing. Then the older woman whispered, voice shaking, "What the fuck was that?" I swallowed hard. "Water," I said, because it was the only word that made sense and also made no sense. Sirens wailed in the distance. Finally, police. Maybe Coast Guard. Maybe both. I should have felt safe. I didn't, because Carla hadn't run. She hadn't panicked. She just left, like she knew the sirens didn't matter. The cops arrived loud and full of authority and impatience. 2 officers came into the office, hands hovering near their belts. They listened to the older woman's frantic explanation, then to me stumbling through mine. I watched their faces shift from concern to skepticism to that hardened look people get when they decide you're hysterical. "Ma'am," one officer said gently, "do you have any history of anxiety or—" "Go to the boat," I snapped. "Look at the cameras. Look at slip 14. They did. They watched the feed. They saw Carla wave. They saw nothing else because the camera hadn't caught the mouth thing. The flicker earlier could be written off as a glitch." The officer's face softened into polite doubt. "Your roommate is on her boat," he said. "Looks like she returned early." "She's dead," I hissed. "Call the medical examiner. Call her mother. She's dead." The second officer shifted uncomfortably. He spoke into his radio. "Can we get confirmation on that ID? Missing person / recovered body." I heard Jonah's voice in my head. "Do not go back on the boat." I should have listened. But then the tug rocked on the monitor. Hard, like something hit it. The cops noticed that at least. One of them leaned toward the screen. "That normal?" "It is now," I whispered. The kid with the lanyard said, voice trembling, "We've had weird stuff. Like something banging on hulls at night. People complain. We thought it was seals." The older woman wiped blood from her nose and said, "We never had that until that girl moved onto the tug." That girl made my stomach twist. Carla had been my friend, not a problem tenant. But this wasn't Carla anymore. The cops decided to do what cops do. Go straight toward the thing they didn't understand with hands on guns and confidence like armor. I begged them not to. I begged them like I was begging a tide not to come in. They went anyway. They took me with them, which I hated. I didn't want to be anywhere near the water, but they wouldn't leave me behind because they were afraid I'd run, like I was the dangerous one. We walked down the docks in a tight group. People stared. Somebody filmed on their phone. The marina cat watched from under a bench, tail flicking. As we approached slip 14, the air got colder. Not weather cold, water cold, like the temperature dropped because something deep had opened. The tug sat there, innocent, sun glinting on rust. The water around it looked darker than the surrounding slips, like a stain. The outer door was closed. One officer called out, Carla Rhodes? Police. We need to speak with you. Silence. He tried again, louder. Nothing. The other officer stepped onto the tug's deck. The metal rang under his boot. He reached for the door handle. My mouth tasted like pennies. Don't, I whispered. He spun the handle anyway. The door groaned open. The tug's interior smelled like rot and brine and hot metal. Hello, he called. No answer. He gestured for the second officer to follow, then glanced at me like, see, it's fine. They stepped inside. I stood on the dock boards, held back by the older officer's hand like I was a dog on a leash. The tug creaked. Then, from inside, a voice said, clear as day, Sash. Carla's voice. My body reacted like it always had, turning toward it, heart lifting for half a second. Then the reality slammed back in, and I felt sick. The officer holding me called, Ma'am, stay here. He moved forward. The tug rocked again. Then the officer inside screamed. Same kind of scream Dave made. A real one. The officer holding me jerked, hand going his gun, and then his radio crackled with a burst of static that sounded wet. And under it, ping. The officer froze. His eyes flicked to me, suddenly sharp, suddenly uncertain. Inside the tug, I heard something heavy dragging across metal. The scream cut off. Then silence. For one horrible moment, nothing moved. No gas, no wind. Even the marina water seemed to still, like it was listening. Then the tug's bilge pump kicked on, whirring, straining, like the boat was desperately trying to spit water out faster than it was taking it in. Water began pouring from the tug's scuppers, thin at first, then steady, cascading onto the dock boards. Not clean water, dark water streaked with oil sheen. And something else, little flecks that caught sunlight like glitter. Silt, sand, like the ocean floor had been poured into our slip. The officer yanked his gun free, aimed it at the open door with shaking hands. Police, show yourself. Carla stepped into the doorway. She looked perfect. Dry hair, clean skin, no scratches, bright eyes. The officer's gun trained on her chest. She smiled at him like he was a child playing. It's okay, she said softly. You don't need that. Step out, he ordered. Now. Carla is similar-vident. Then she tilted her head slightly, like she was listening. Behind her, in the dark corridor of the tug, something moved. A shadow sliding along the floor, too wide, too low. The officer holding me didn't see it. He was focused on Carla. Carla's eyes flicked to me. For a split second, her face changed, not glitching, not slipping, changing like a fish rolling to show a different side. Her eyes went flat, and I heard her voice in my head, not through my ears. Come back. My knees buckled. The officer swore, grabbing my arm tighter. Mom. Carla lifted one hand, palm up, like she was offering something. The water in the slip responded. It rose. Not a wave, not a splash. It rose like it was being pulled upward by invisible hands. The surface thickened again, that membrane look, and the dock boards under my feet went slick instantly with brine. The officer's boots slid. He staggered. Carla whispered, silence. The water surged. It didn't crash like normal water. It wrapped. It curled up onto the dock like a living thing, slick and heavy, and it grabbed the officer's ankles. He shouted, tried to yank free, but the water held him like hands. Then it pulled. Hard. He went down with a scream and was dragged toward the slip edge like a fish on a line. The officer inside the tug, if he was alive, made no sound. The dock was chaos. People shouted from farther down. Somebody ran. Somebody slipped. The marina cap bolted. I did the only thing my body could do. I lunged forward, grabbed the officer's wrist, and yanked. His skin was cold, already wet. He was strong, fighting, kicking, but the water had weight, leverage, intent. Carla. I screamed because my brain still wanted to believe I could call her like a dog and she'd stop. Carla looked at me with that perfect face and said, calmly, do you miss me? Her mouth didn't move right on the words. The water yanked again. The officer's body slid. His gun clattered, lost. I felt my shoulder scream with pain as I tried to hold him. My feet slipped. The dock edge was right there. And then a hand grabbed my other arm. Not wet, warm. The kid from the office lanyard guy had sprinted down and latched onto me, eyes wild. "Let go," he yelled. "Let him go." "I can't," I sobbed. "I can't." He didn't argue. He just wrapped both arms around me and hauled back with everything he had. For a second, we held. 3 bodies in a line. Me, him, the officer. The water pulling like a tide with fingers. Then the officer screamed, "Go." He looked at me, eyes wide with terror and something like acceptance, and he shoved my hand away. I let go. The water took him instantly, sliding him off the dock like he'd never existed. There was a splash, and then nothing but ripples. The kid dragged me backward, hard, until I fell on my ass on the boards, sobbing. I looked up at the tug. Carla was still in the doorway. She watched us like we were a show. Then she stepped back into the darkness and closed the door gently, like she was tucking herself in. The tug rocked once slow. Then the bilge pump stopped. Silence fell again, heavy as pressure. Sirens were closer now, but it didn't matter. Not right now. The kid was panting, staring at the tug like it might grow teeth. "What the fuck?" he whispered. "What the fuck is happening?" I swallowed, throat raw. "It wants me," I said, and my voice sounded like someone else's. "It's been texting me from underwater since she died. It's been practicing." The kid stared at me. "Who?" I looked at the water, because the water looked back, not with eyes, with ripples that moved against the wind, with a darkness under the surface that felt like a presence pressing up. Talp, 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 under the dock boards. A code, a call. We stumbled back toward shore as more people arrived. More cops, Coast Guard, paramedics, shouting, radios. The marina turned into a swarm of authority, and it still felt like nothing. Like watching ants try to arrest a tide. They cordoned off Slip 14. They tried to board the tug again with divers and rescue gear. The tug sat there quiet and obedient. No Carla in the doorway now. No strange water rising. Just a rusted boat rocking in a normal marina. When the Coast Guard divers finally went in, 2 of them in full gear, I watched from behind a yellow tape line with Jonah standing beside me, face tight. He looked like he wanted to be sick and furious at the same time. "You should have stayed in the office," he muttered. "I know," I whispered. He glanced at me. "I've never seen water do that." "Me neither," I said. The divers boarded the tug. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Radios crackled. The divers' voices came through, muffled and tense. "Interior clear. No occupants. Repeat, no occupants." No sign of officer. A pause. "We have water. We have water inside. It's everywhere." Jonah swore under his breath. They backed out. They looked shaken when they emerged, water dripping from their suits. One of them pulled off his mask and spit. "Boat's dry outside," he said, voice hoarse. "Inside smells like the bottom of the ocean." Like, he stopped, looked around like he didn't want to say it near civilians. Then he said anyway, like something lives down there. They searched the tug top to bottom. They found the tub filled with black water to the rim, even though the faucet was off. They found kelp in the sink, fresh and wet. They found the weird book on the galley table, pages damp, symbols crawling across them like they'd been written by a hand that didn't need air. They found none of Carla's clothes, none of her gear, no Pelican cases, like she'd never been there. The cops looked at me like I was a liar, like I'd set up a whole performance. Then one of them found Dave's radio under the galley bench, dripping, and their eyes changed. They started treating it like a crime scene. They started using words like unknown suspect and possible drowning and underwater hazard. No one used the words I wanted them to use. Not human. Jonah took me aside behind the office building where the wind smelled less like diesel and more like open water. He rubbed his face with both hands and said, "Okay, tell me everything. No filtering." So I told him. I told him about the first text, the underwater waterfall, the wreck photo, the cave, the handprint on glass, the impossible timestamps. I told him about Carla coming home soaked and calling me Sasha. I told him about the breathing through the drain. I told him about Dave. I told him about the mouth. When I finished, Jonas stared at the ground for a long time. His jaw worked like he was chewing on something bitter. Then he said, quietly, "We had a sonar event out past Breakwater 2 weeks ago." My skin prickled. "What kind of event?" I asked. He hesitated, then said, "A ping. Not ours. Not any buoy. Not any ship. Came up on multiple systems. Like someone was scanning." The word hit me like a hook. Scanning. Practicing. Jonah continued, voice low. "We logged it, forwarded it. Navy sent a guy in a clean uniform who didn't give his name and asked for copies. He said it was probably a false return." "Was it?" I asked. Jonah looked at me. His eyes were tired and scared in a way I'd never seen. "No," he said. "It wasn't." My stomach dropped. "Carla went out there," I whispered. "She went to the listening post." Jonah's gaze flicked toward the water. The marina. The horizon line where the open sea started beyond the breakwater. "That post isn't supposed to exist," he said. I gave a shaky laugh. "It exists enough to kill her." He flinched. He hated that word. Kill, because it made it personal, made a failure. Her body, Jonah said slowly, was recovered near breakwater. Torn up, gear still on, ID still on, but he swallowed. There were no bite marks consistent with sharks. Not clean, not like that. What was it then? I demanded, anger breaking through grief. "What took her?" Jonah didn't answer. He couldn't, or he wouldn't. Instead, he said, "Do you have somewhere else to go tonight?" I stared at him. "You think I'm going back on that tug?" "No," he said firmly. "No, you're coming with me." I should have said yes instantly. I should have climbed into his car and never looked back. But my eyes went to my phone, because it buzzed again in my hand. From Carla. A new photo. This one wasn't underwater. It was inside a car. A dashboard. Jonah's car. My breath hitched. The caption, "I like him. He listens." Jonah saw my face change. "What?" I showed him the phone. His skin went pale. "Jesus," he whispered. "Ow!" A ping rolled through the air between us. Faint but unmistakable. Ping. Jonah's car alarm chirped once and then died, like the system shorted. We both turned toward the marina water. The water looked normal. But now that I knew what to look for, I could see it. Tiny ripples moving wrong, converging like something beneath was shifting position. Jonah backed up instinctively. "Get inside," he snapped. "Inside where?" I hissed. "It's water. It's everywhere." He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the marina office again. We didn't make it 10 steps before the phone buzzed again. Another photo. Underwater. The listening post dome, closer now. Glass curved, covered in algae. The flashlight beam was brighter, more deliberate, like someone had moved in closer. And behind the glass, inside the dome, a human shape floated. My throat tightened. Even through the distortion, I knew the shape of Carla's dry suit. The way her braid floated around her head like seaweed. Her face was turned toward the glass. Her eyes were open. I made a sound that I couldn't control, something between a sob and a retch. The caption under the photo read, "She's still here." Jonah's grip tightened painfully. "We're not looking at that," he said, voice shaking with anger like he could bully reality into behaving. "We're not doing this." But my brain locked onto that photo like a hook in flesh. Kanula, still there, not gone. I don't know what you believe about death. I don't know if you think a body is just a body. But when someone you love is ripped out of the world, and then you see them again, see their face, their eyes, something primal wakes up. Hope is a drug. It makes you stupid. I whispered, "We have to go out there." Jonah stared at me like I'd slapped him. "No, absolutely not." "She's there," I said, voice breaking. "That's her. That's bait," he snapped. "That's a fucking lure. It's showing me for a reason," I insisted, and my own voice sounded distant, like it was coming through water. "It wants me to see." Jonah's face twisted, like he was fighting two instincts, protect and run. "You go out there and you don't come back," he said. "I'm not coming back anyway," I whispered. He looked like he wanted to argue, but then his own phone, buzzed. He checked it, and his whole posture changed. He turned the screen toward me. A message from an unknown number. A single line. "We remember your voice, Jonah." Under it, a photo. Jonah at a Coast Guard desk, headset on, mouth open mid-sentence. Taken from somewhere inside the station. Jonah's breath went shallow. He looked suddenly very small. "It's in the system," he whispered. "It's in the radios." "Sonar," I said. "Pings. Echoes. It copies." Jonah's jaw clenched hard enough to see muscles jump. "Okay," he said, and there was something cold in his tone now. "Okay, Phoenix." He grabbed his keys. I blinked. "What?" "We're going," he said. "Not because it wants us to, because if it's doing this here, in the marina, it's not contained. And I'm not letting it pick people off like this." "You just said it's bait," I said. "It is," he snapped. "So we go like we know it's bait." "Ow," I demanded. "With guns? Against water?" Jonah didn't answer. He just marched. "We stole a boat." "Not literally stole." Jonah flashed his badge at someone and took a rigid inflatable like he owned it. People didn't argue. They were scared. The whole marina had that electric buzz of a disaster starting, and everyone wanted someone else to handle it. The Coast Guard launched us fast, sirens and radios and hands waving. The RIB slammed against the chop as we cleared the breakwater, and the open sea smell hit me, salt and diesel and something darker, like deep water. Jonah drove hard. The shoreline fell away, buildings shrinking. The horizon widened until it felt like the world was only water and sky. I sat gripping the side rope, so tight my fingers cramped. Spray slapped my face cold. My mouth tasted of salt immediately, like the ocean was feeding me. Jonah had a handheld radio on the console. It crackled constantly, commands, updates, questions about the missing officers. Jonah ignored most of it. His eyes stayed locked on the water ahead. "You been out there?" I shouted over the engine. He nodded once. "Once. To the listening post?" He hesitated, then said, "To the area. Not inside. It's off the maps. You don't go out there unless you're told." "And Carla went," I shouted. Jonah's jaw tightened. "Yeah. We hit the coordinates Jonah had. There was nothing there at first glance. Just sea. Just rolling slate blue water with white caps. But then the depth sounder on the console started flickering. Numbers jumped. Depth readings that didn't make sense. Too shallow, then too deep, then blank. Jonah's radio crackled with a burst of static. Ping. The engine coughed once like it had inhaled water. Jonah swore and throttled down. The sea around us changed. It's hard to describe without sounding like I'm trying to be poetic, but it wasn't that. It was physical. The surface went wrong. Smoother. Thicker. Like oil had spread, but without the sheen. The waves dampened in a circle around us, as if something beneath was absorbing motion. The hairs on my arms lifted. Jonah killed the engine. We bobbed in unnatural calm. Beyond the circle, normal waves continued, breaking and glittering. Inside it, the water held us like a hand. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't want to look. I did anyway. A message from Carla. No photo, just text. "Down." Jonah saw my face. "What does it say?" "Down," I whispered. Jonah swallowed. He reached under the console and pulled out something wrapped in plastic. A flare gun. I stared. "That's your plan?" "It's a plan," he said grimly. "Stay close. Stay on the boat. No matter what you see." He clipped a safety line around his waist, then around mine, like we were going to climb a mast in a storm. He anchored it to the console. "It can't pull us apart if we're tied," he said. I wanted to laugh, like a rope could beat water. Then something tapped the underside of the hull. Talp, talp, talp. The RIB shivered. I held my breath. Another tap. Slower. Talp, talp, talp. Jonah whispered, "Don't look." Of course I looked. The water beside the boat dimpled. Then it bulged, rising like something was pushing up from below, and a face pressed against it, not breaking through the surface, pressing up into it like the surface was glass. Carla's face, perfect, smiling, eyes bright. I screamed. Jonah yanked me back by the harness. "Don't engage," he barked. Carla's mouth moved beneath the surface, and her voice came through the hole, through the water, through my teeth like vibration. Sash. My stomach twisted. Tears spilled without me deciding. The face slid along the surface beside us, tracking the boat. The water held it like a screen. Then more shapes rose around it. Not faces, not human. Long pale forms, barely visible, like eels made of milk. They moved just under the surface, circling. And each time one brushed the hull, I felt that sonar ping in my skull. Ping. Jonah raised the flare gun, hands shaking. Back off! He yelled at the water, like the water could be threatened. Carla's face smiled wider. Then it sank. The surface released it without a splash. The circle of calm around us tightened. The boat dipped slightly, like something had grabbed it from below. Jonah swore, fired the flare straight down at the water. The flare hit the surface and didn't float. It sank like a stone, burning red under the surface for a second, lighting up the water beneath us. And for that 1 second, I saw it. The listening post. Not a myth, not a rumor. A glass and metal dome anchored to the seafloor, cables snaking from it into darkness. A hatch, portholes like eyes, barnacles crusted thick on its ribs. And all around it, shapes. So many shapes. Not fish, not sharks. Bodies like human bodies, but longer, thinner, jointed wrong. Pale and slick. Their heads were too big, skulls domed like belugas. Their mouths, God, their mouths, opened sideways like gashes, and inside them, faint bioluminescent pulses like that thing I'd seen in Carla's throat. They moved around the dome like workers around a hive. One clung to the glass with long fingers and stared up at the flare's red glow. It turned its head slightly and looked straight at me through water and distance like it could see through the boat, through my skin, through my thoughts. Then the flares sputtered and died in the depths, and the water went dark again. Jonah was breathing hard. You saw that, he said. Not a question. I couldn't speak. My jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. The boat dipped again. The harness line snapped taut, pulling at my waist. Jonah grabbed the console, knuckles white, and shouted in his radio, "Gull Point, this is Jonah. We have visual on submerged structure. Repeat, visual on submerged." The radio answered with Carla's voice. Not a recording, not static. Her voice, warm and close. "Come down," it said. Jonah froze like he'd been punched. The water beside the boat opened. Not split, open like a mouth. A perfect circle of blackness formed at the surface, and the water around it held itself upright like walls, revealing a shaft straight down into dark. No babels, no turbulence, just a hole. Cold air rose from it, smelling like deep ocean and rust. Jonah whispered, "That's not possible." The harness line jerked. Hard. I was yanked forward on my stomach, sliding across the wet boat floor toward the hole. I screamed and grabbed the side rope, fingers slipping. The rope burned my palms. Jonah lunged, grabbed my harness, and hauled back. The harness bit into my ribs. Pain flared. The pull from below didn't stop. It wasn't a single yank. It was steady pressure like a winch. Jonah braced his feet, muscles straining. "And oh," he roared, and his voice cracked. The rope anchored to the console creaked. The console bolt squealed. The boat itself started to tilt toward the whole RIB being dragged like a toy. My phone buzzed in my pocket absurdly. I didn't look. Carla's voice came again, not from the radio now, from the water, from the hole. "Sash," it said, pleading. "Please. It hurts. I'm cold. I'm alone." My heart shattered on reflex. That was Carla's real tone. The one she used when she pretended she wasn't scared, but she was. The one she used once when she'd gotten tangled in fishing line and surfaced shaking and angry at herself. I sobbed, "Stop it." Jonah screamed back, "It's not her." The voice shifted instantly, dropping the plea, turning playful. "Do you miss me?" Then the tug. Not our tug. The old listening post dome. Something inside it lit up. A faint glow in the portholes like eyes opening. And through the dark water, I saw a figure float into view behind the glass. Carla, real Carla, hair floating, face pale, eyes open, staring. My scream turned into a sound I didn't recognize. Jonah's grip on my harness faltered for a fraction of a second because he looked too. That fraction was enough. The pole below surged. The rope snapped. It didn't fray. It snapped clean like it had been cut. I slid. The hole swallowed the front half of the RIB like it was nothing. Water didn't splash. It folded around it. Jonah grabbed for me, nails digging into my arm, and then we were both sliding toward the black. He hooked his arm around a cleat, muscle screaming. His face was red, veins bulging, teeth bared. "Don't let go," he shouted at me. I clung to him, sobbing, fingers numb. The hole's edge was inches from my face. Cold air pouring up, smelling like rust and salt and something sweetly rotten. And then a hand rose from the hole. Not a creature hand, a human hand. Carla's hand. Familiar ring on her finger. Familiar chip na polish. It reached up and grasped my wrist. Cold. So cold it felt like dry ice. My brain shorted. I wanted to grab it. I wanted to pull her up. I wanted to believe so badly my whole body leaned toward it. Juana screamed, "No." He tried to kick the hand away. His boot connected with it. The hand didn't move. Instead, the skin of the hand rippled, like it was water wearing a hand shape. Fingers elongated. Knuckles doubled. The ring slid off and disappeared into the black. It tightened around my wrist, suction strong, and through it a pulse ran up my arm like sonar. Ping. My vision blurred. For a second, I wasn't on the boat. I was underwater, deep, pressure squeezing, ears screaming. I heard distant pings in all directions, a chorus, overlapping, communicating. And layered under it, 1,000 voices, human voices, whispering through water. Names, calls, please, like the ocean was full of people still talking. I snapped back with a sob. Jonah was still holding the cleat, arm shaking violently. Blood ran from his scraped knuckles. His eyes were wild. He shouted, "Sash, listen to me. If you go down there, you're gone. You understand? You're gone." The thing holding my wrist tightened. Carla's voice whispered from the hole, right under my face, intimate as breath. "I can bring her back." My throat closed. "I can bring her up," the voice promised. "You only have to come down. Just a little. Just to the window." The listening post portholes glowed faintly below, like it was waiting. I thought of Carla's mom, her texts, her grief. I thought of Carla laughing on our deck, feeding the marina cat, humming while she cooked. I thought of her eyes in that underwater photo, open behind glass. My body shook with wanting. Jonah shook his head, tears in his eyes now, furious tears. "It's lying," he snarled. "It can't bring her back. It can only wear her. It can only use her voice." The voice from below softened, coaxing. "Sash, don't you want to see her again?" My wrist burned with cold. My arm went numb. The hole pulled. Jonah's arm slipped on the cleat. His grip faltered. He screamed with effort. I realized then, clear and awful, that this thing wasn't just trying to take me. It was testing. It had learned in the marina that people would come, that voices would bring them, that fear and love were strings it could tug. It didn't need to chase. It could fish, and I was already on the hook. Something snapped in me. Not courage, not heroism, pure survival rage. The same animal part that had shoved me through the porthole. I screamed back into the hole. "If you're Carla, say it. Say the thing you always say when you're pissed at me." The voice paused, a fraction too long. Then it said carefully, "Sash. No, iskramat." Say it. The voice shifted, annoyed now. Why? Because Carla had a phrase she used when I annoyed her with worry. She'd roll her eyes and say, "Stop mothering me. I'm not your fucking buoy." It was stupid. It was ours. The voice didn't know it. It tried anyway, clumsy. "Stop. Stop." That was enough. I yanked my arm back with everything I had, twisting my wrist hard like you do to break a grip. The suction loosened for half a second. Jonah used that half second like a damn miracle. He let go of the cleat with one hand, grabbed the flare gun from his belt, jammed it straight into the hole, and fired. The flare exploded red beneath the surface. This time, the water reacted. It convulsed. The hole's smooth walls shuddered like flesh. A scream came up through it. Not human, not animal. Pressure and vibration that made my teeth ache. The grip on my wrist released instantly. I slammed backward into the boat floor, sobbing, cradling my arm. My skin was white where it had held me, marked with faint circular bruises like suction cups. Jonah didn't waste a second. He grabbed the engine cord, yanked, and the outboard roared to life like it had been waiting. The hull tried to pull again, but the engine's thrust fought it. The RIB lurched free with a wet slap as the surface finally remembered how to be water. Waves crashed in. Spray hit my face. The unnatural calm shattered. Jonah gunned it. The ocean behind us churned, and for a second I saw shapes breach. Not fully, but enough. Pale limbs, long fingers, mouths opening sideways. And above it all, Carla's voice screamed from the water, not pleading now, furious. Come back. Jonah didn't look back. He drove until the sea became normal again, until the depth sounder stopped flickering, until the air warmed and my lungs stopped tasting like rust. By the time we hit the breakwater, I was shaking so hard my teeth clicked. People on the marina dock were waiting. More Coast Guard, more cops, more radios. They helped us in shouting questions, hands grabbing, blankets thrown around my shoulders. I didn't answer anyone. I stared at the water, because I could still hear it faintly under everything. Ping. That night, they put me in a hotel. Not my choice. Jonah insisted, and honestly, I didn't fight. I couldn't go back to the tug. The tug got towed out, supposedly to be searched somewhere secure. They said divers would inspect the seabed. They said Navy was involved now. They said words like containment and hazard. Jonah sat in the hotel room with me for hours, like he didn't trust the water in the pipes not to crawl out and take me. He kept checking his phone, jaw clenched. He tried to call people he trusted. He got stonewalled. He got vague answers. He got redirected. It was like the whole system had suddenly grown gills and slipped underwater. At some point around 2 a.m., Jonah finally said, voice hollow, "They're going to bury this." I stared at the carpet. They can't bury the ocean. He gave a humorless laugh. They can try. When he left, he stood at the door a long time, looking at me like he wanted to say something else. Don't answer any messages, he said finally. No matter what. I nodded, even though my phone was already face down on the bed like a dead thing. Jonah left. The hotel room fell quiet, and then the bathroom sink gurgled. I froze. The gurgle stopped. Then, faintly from the drain, a wet tapping. Top, top, top. My whole body went cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The tapping paused, then came again, slower. Top, top, top. And then, so soft I almost convinced myself I imagined it. A voice, not through air, but through the pipes, through water, through my teeth. Sash. Tears spilled down my face silently. My phone buzzed on the bed. I didn't touch it. It buzzed again and again. Finally, shaking so hard I thought I'd vomit, I flipped it over. A message from Carla. No photo this time. Just text. You left me in the cold. Another buzz. I brought you a present. Another buzz. A photo loaded in before I could stop it. It was the hotel room's bathroom. My bathroom. Taken from inside it. The sink. The mirror. The shower curtain. And in the mirror's reflection, behind where the camera must have been, a figure standing in the doorway. Carla. Smiling. Dry. Perfect. I screamed and launched off the bed, heart detonating. I slammed the bathroom door shut and threw the lock. Like that mattered. Like a cheap latch could stop water. I backed away, eyes on the door, chest heaving. From the other side, the shower turned on by itself. Full blast. Water pounded the tub like fists. Then the drain made that breathing sound again. A wet inhale. A pause. A wet exhale. And under it, faint, delighted. Ping. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed with my knees pulled up, staring at the bathroom door until dawn, listening to water run and stop and run again like someone playing with a faucet for fun. When the sun came up, the shower stopped. The hotel room smelled faintly of brine. My phone buzzed one last time. A single message. "Do you miss me?" I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the carpet. Then from somewhere deep in the building, pipes, vents, the bones of the place, I heard it. Talp, talp, talp. Not just one drain. Several. Like something moving through the water system, knocking as it went. Checking doors. Finding the thin places. I'm telling you this now because there's no good time. Because if I keep it inside me, it feels like I'm helping it by keeping it secret. And because I don't know how long I have before it decides to stop texting and start knocking on something other than glass. They towed our tug away. The marina posted a notice about structural damage and biohazard cleanup. Dave's family got condolences. The officer's family got condolences. Carla's mom got condolences and a closed casket. The ocean got none. Jonah won't answer my calls anymore. Or he can't. Or his phone isn't his. I don't know. What I do know is this. Water doesn't forget. Every sink I've stood over since then has felt like an eye. Every shower has felt like a mouth. Every time a toilet gurgles, I taste metal. Sometimes, late at night, I'll be half asleep and I'll hear a distant ping. Faint, regular, and I'll sit up with my heart in my throat because I can feel it scanning. Listening, practicing my voice. And sometimes, if I press my ear to the drain and hold my breath, I swear I can hear Carla humming down there. Not the fake Carla, not the voice that wants me, the real one, muffled, weak, like she's trapped behind glass and water and pressure, like she's still at the window, waiting for me to come down.